are rolling here with Miss Thelma Houston.
Yes!
Oh my goodness, Thelma! I'm so glad you got to do our show.
Oh, I'm so glad you invited me.
Well,
Thank you.
I met you through our friend Sammy McKinney.
That's right.
Who has introduced so many people. He was one of those people who was a connector. He connected people, and you know those people.
Yeah, of course.
Where they just put this
This
bag.
is I brought this today. This beautiful bag, a gourd. It's made out of a gourd, and Sammy introduced me to this, and I think Sammy got this.
Yes.
So I brought him today to be here with
yes.
It's a handbag made out of a gourd.
It's a handbag.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And I remember the woman who made those. I can't remember her name.
It's called the name of the company is called
what does that say? I can't.
Nobody has
Relative Art. Relative Art.
Relative Art. And that says 05. Because I met Sammy in 95 right here. We're on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood right now. I met him down the street at Tower Records. I was in Tower Records, and he came over to me and said, "You're RuPaul, huh?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "So and so, I'm a friend of Patty's. I'm Sammy McKinney." I said, "Right." When I met Patti LaBelle, she said, "Do you know my friend Sammy McKinney?" And I put two and two together, and we were friends ever since.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's a wonder, and he like you said, he's connected so
many people.
Many people.
Yeah. Sammy passed away in 08.
Yeah.
And I think of him all the time.
You reference him a lot.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
There's some same thing, because there's something that'll happen and something that'll remind me, or something that I'll say, and you still, because he gets it. He got everything. He got all the jokes. He got all the, and he was up on everything. The latest books, the latest this, the latest that, styles, but everything.
What do you think that element is that so many people could connect to one person? Because first of all, by the way, I don't like anybody.
Yes, you
I'm going to attest to that.
Yes, you
No.
But what is the element that allows people to feel safe like that? Because, we've talked about this. How is it that so many people would be attracted to him, and that he could tolerate so many people?
I don't know what that attraction was, but it is a gift.
Yeah.
And he was amazing. And he would, if he said, like the lady, what's the lady with the cat lady?
Oh,
Remember
Jocelyn Wildenstein.
Jocelyn Wildenstein? And he said, "Oh, she's so fabulous. I love her.
Yes.
I'm going to be," and he did, and he would meet her.
Yes.
And he met her, and they became friends.
I love it.
Everyone that he meets,
Everyone he set his sights on, he would become friends, and they would.
He was a powerful manifester, is what
He was that.
And it was not just, it was all across the board.
Yes.
He through Sammy. I mean, Sammy was very good friends with Busta Rhymes.
Oh.
We were downtown at a Busta Rhymes video thing, and Sammy said, "Oh, Sammy, come on!" And we went to the concert that night at the House of Blues, and
You're
Sammy
kidding
just
me.
all up in there. Yeah.
That's so special.
Yes.
He was a special guy.
He loves Sammy.
Yeah. How did you meet Sammy?
Well, I met Sammy when Sammy was doing hair. And Sammy was doing hair at my good friend. His name was Clifford Peterson. Clifford Peterson was a very he was the kind of person that you would say he was born to do hair. I mean, he was from Long Beach. That's where I'm from, Long Beach. And so he and I grew up, Clifford Peterson and I. And so when he later on in life, he got a salon, and Sammy was one of the people working in there. And he was a very good hairstylist, but he was also a songwriter. I mean, he was also writing songs, and he was also singing at that time.
Yeah.
And so I would go and support Sammy. He would do shows down at the
Maverick Flats?
No, not Maverick Flats. At the Studio One downstairs. What's that little room down there?
Right, here in Hollywood.
Yes, And so I would go down there, and then Sammy, pretty soon he kept with the writing, and he started getting his songs out to people, and that he stopped doing the hair only for those that he really, really wanted to,
Sure,
like
yeah.
Patty and so forth. But then he became a very successful songwriter, writing hits for Anita Baker.
Yeah, he wrote Just Because for Anita Baker.
Did
he?
Yeah.
Wow.
And a lot of other songs.
Yeah, what was
Wow.
that one he did for Nancy Wilson? Was it Hello Again, or what was that?
I think I'm trying to.
Yeah, it was
but-
one of
Some
those.
classic voices.
Oh
Brilliant.
yeah.
Wow.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating
And a
story.
lot of people wanted to write with him.
Sure.
Yeah. So he was.
It sounded
just-
like people just wanted to be with him.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
He was.
Which is an amazing
He
energy
was
to
an
have.
No,
interesting
it is
person, yeah.
amazing because I could tolerate anybody for a little bit,
Right.
but more than a couple of hours,
Yeah.
and he was the kind of person people would ingratiate him into their homes where he would be cooking food.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
and
I love
Oh,
that.
yeah.
inviting
I
him
would've
on the
loved
yachts.
him.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes, and he was good. Who was the
Denise Rich.
Denise Rich? They were best friends.
Yeah, Denise Rich was the wife of the.
Did I meet him at Denise Rich's? Have I ever met?
You probably have.
I feel like
I'm
in
sure
the past
you
25
have.
years, I must have.
Yeah, because he was in New York at Denise's, and Denise Rich was the ex-wife of the financier Mark Rich, who had been pardoned by
Clinton?
Clinton
Or-
on his last day,
Yeah.
but he had taken a lot of money out of the country. He's no longer with us, Mark Rich, and like $800 million,
$1
something like that.
Got in a little bit of trouble
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah, so they said if his ass stepped foot in America, they was going to arrest him.
Right.
But and I think in the divorce settlement, I believe that Denise got $80 million.
Because wasn't she a songwriter
Yes.
too?
She's a
She was a
songwriter.
songwriter.
Yeah, she is a songwriter. She's still around.
So she's yeah, but she's still writing.
But her
Yeah.
family had money before Mark Rich.
Well, money always finds money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Now, so we could talk about Sammy forever. I'm going to talk about, you got this show coming up on August 27th at the Ford Theater here in Los Angeles, which is just across the freeway from the Hollywood Bowl.
Right.
And tell me about the show.
Well, the show, it's a 90-minute show, and it's called My Motown. We continue with the Motown story. My Motown Memories and More. And I'll tell you how that came about. It came about in my show, in my I call it my regular show, not the My Motown Memories. I do a medley. And it's an 8-minute medley of Motown hits. The reason I started doing that was probably back in like the 70s. I was going before Don't Leave Me This Way, before I had a hit.
The greatest disco song of all time. And we'll get to that in a minute. Of all time. We're going to talk
All
about
right
that.
now.
That's it, girl. Of all time. And he'll back me up. I've been saying this for how many years?
Yes, you have.
Yeah.
She says that is her favorite disco song
Of all time.
Yep.
Of all. And there's some great ones out
There's
there.
some great ones.
Number one.
Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Deservedly so. Right, carry on.
Okay, so there was a his name was Gil Askey, and Gil Askey was the music director for lots of the Motown acts when they would go out on the road. He would do their charts and stuff. And Gil was he was a great guy, and he would see me, kind of, I would work so hard, doing the, for these, being the opening act for somebody. People are walking in on your show
Because you were signed to
trying to get
Motown.
their-
When did you sign to Motown?
I signed to Motown in 1972, 72 or 73.
Yeah. And you were there, and you didn't have a hit until many years later.
Till 77, 76, 77.
And they kept you on all that time.
Yeah, they did.
Wow. They were that's when they developed acts.
It was a different story. I mean, it was a different time then.
Yeah.
And I mean, Suzanne DePass was the head. She's the person that signed me to the label, and she was the head of artists and repertoire, A&R. That's when they had them. I don't even know.
I don't think they exist
I don't think they
anymore.
have.
Well, you know what? They
now.
do have them, but they are freelance. They are not under contract to companies. So a company will hire a freelance A&R person.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She was responsible for discovering Michael Jackson and the
I was going to say
Jackson
a
5.
lot.
Yeah.
She's so anyway, Gil said, I'm gonna come up with something that's gonna, it's gonna be you put that in a million show, and you're gonna have people up, and it worked because we did everything, the Temptations, the Four Tops, and all of these people, the Supremes, and everybody for 8 minutes of Motown.
That's a lot.
Little splashes.
Yeah.
And they go, wow. Let's say so. Over the years, people have said, I like that Motown stuff.
Yeah.
Are you going to do any more of that
Yeah.
in your show? Singing more Motown songs
Sure.
that were done by other artists.
Yeah.
And it didn't strike me as something that I would really want to do because there's so many other, people are doing that.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So I tried to think, how could I do that? And how I came up with it is like the idea is, in your life, there are certain events that happen, and there was a certain song that was a hit or something at that time, and when you hear that song, you'll recall
Yes.
Nostalgia.
That,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I started thinking about that, and it came out to be, for instance, my opening song, I'll just tell you this, my opening song is Shop Around. That came out in 1960.
Okay.
1960 brought back memories of Mr. Pup's hamburger stand.
Oh yeah.
And the reason I brought it to Mr. Pup's hamburger stand is I remember sitting in the car with my boyfriend, who later became my husband, and getting sick, morning sickness, all that, because I was pregnant.
Yeah.
So that
Okay.
memory came back.
That
Yes.
memory came back, right? So then, 61, when my daughter was born, Please Mr. Postman.
Right.
And when I was carrying her,
Yeah.
when Heat Wave, she was born. Dancing in the Street, my son was born. So these are how these
Benchmarks
parts of my
in
life.
your
They're connected
life.
to
Yes.
your life.
And
Yeah.
then there are other songs that I do in the show of, like, I toured with the Four Tops, I toured with the Temptations, I did Carnegie Hall with Smokey Robinson. Stevie Wonder produced me in the things. I have a story. So these are how they're connected.
Right.
So you said it's your Motown Memories. Is that what you said?
My Motown Memories
That's
and
great.
more.
Great.
And the more part is I had my very first album was an album called Sun Shower that was written and produced by Jimmy Webb, and it was critically acclaimed. It was critically acclaimed album, but it didn't do well commercially. But a lot of people know about that album.
Yes, I know of it. Yes.
So we talk about that and that story and how that came in. Then then it gets to Don't Leave Me This Way, which is the end.
Yeah. Now we're going to take a break in a minute, but now the Jimmy Webb album, were those all songs that he had other people cover before you? Were there originals on the Jimmy Webb album?
There was some originals on it, but Didn't We had been recorded by Richard Harris. I think Pocket Full of Keys he wanted that to be done by Frank Sinatra, but he didn't do it. This Is Your Life was also going to be, I think, a Frank Sinatra song, which he didn't. But then This Is Where I Came In was already recorded, had been recorded
The
by
Fifth
someone.
Dimension? No? This Is Where I Came In?
This Is Where I Came In was a group. They may have done it, but it was a group called, I can't think of the name of them, but it was Jimmy's girlfriend was in this group.
I see. Yeah.
A girl group.
So there was Sunshine, and then was there what other album came after? Because they paired you with Jerry Butler.
Yeah,
Was that
came out.
before? Was that before your big #1 hit, or
Oh,
was it?
yeah.
It was.
It was before.
Because did you do 2 albums with Jerry Butler?
Well, what happened? They did release two albums, but the first album was the one that he and I liked, and we agreed. We really wanted that one. And the second album was released of material that we had passed on. and said
I
we
see.
didn't
You
really-
recorded it, and then it didn't make it onto
and
the
then
first album.
as far as we were concerned.
It's interesting.
But somebody went back there and they saw fit to release it.
Because after Don't Leave Me This Way, you had Saturday Night, Sunday Morning. Was that on RCA or was it on Motown?
No, that was on Motown.
It was on Motown. We've got Thelma Houston here. No relation to Whitney Houston. Everybody
Or
asked
Sissy.
that. Or Sissy Houston.
Yeah.
But we're going to take a break. Everybody asked that. Do they
asked me
still
that.
do?
People have come up to me. This one. Let me just tell you this one story. I was in Washington D.C. And this at a I forget the function, but anyway, this man came up to me and he was very sincere and he put his arm around me. and he pulled me to him. He put his arm around my shoulder, and he pulled me and he held me really close, and he said, "I just want you to know I'm praying for you and your daughter." And at that minute,
Oh my God.
because the way he said it, and he was so sincere, and I didn't want to block no blessings, I said, "Thank you, sir."
You're not going to hurt nobody. Not going to hurt nobody.
Well, she do have a daughter.
She do a daughter.
Right.
And her last name is Houston.
But you know what? I tell you, are we on a break now?
Yeah, we can talk.
Okay, because I was touring with Dionne Warwick, and so Dionne invited me to go from where we were to the hotel. I think it was the Crown. It was a new hotel, Anyway, she was performing there. She said, "Let's go. Will you go with me to see Whitney?" And I said, "Of course." So we went over to see Whitney, and who was very sweet, very nice, and it was the three of us. We just sitting in one of the restaurants having coffee, and they were getting caught up with each other, because they're relatives and stuff. So Whitney, at one point, she turned to me. She says, "Do people come up to you and ask you if you're related to me?" Because I wasn't. I said, "Now, Thelma, when you get up in that thing with Dionne, get up in Whitney's face. Say, we need to this, just don't even bring that up."
Yeah.
So when she brought it up, I said, "Yes, they do." She said, "And what do you tell them?" I said, "Well, I tell them no, that we're not." I explain. She says, "Girl, just say yes, because they're not going to leave you alone. Just because then they're going to say, 'But aren't you?' And that's true.
Yeah.
Because they try to make you.
Yeah.
Sure. They want it to be
They want
true.
that to be.
Yeah. I love it.
Cousins
but
once
it's
removed.
a good story.
It is a
because
good-
he was so sweet.
I love it.
Yeah.
We got Thelma Houston. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back after this. Michelle, I grew up reading Interview magazine. That's how I found out about Andy Warhol, and that I wanted to move to New York and become change my name, become a superstar, all that kind of stuff. I lived for magazines. Now there's a way to see all those your favorite magazines in one place on your phone or on your app. It's called Texture.com.
Yeah, it's a Texture app, actually, Rue, and it's gone beyond delivering the magazines itself. They've made it easy to find and enjoy the articles you want to read with daily recommendations, which I love, exclusive interactive features, videos, and more. And here's the thing. Texture makes magazines easy, and there's so many great ones out there. Like you said, Interview magazine has been your favorite since you was just a little RuPaul.
Yes, ma'am.
And they have my favorite, Popular Mechanics.
Oh my God, I knew that about you.
Of course you
You
did.
and you're
Lowrider, yeah.
You're amazing, Michelle.
All that stuff.
Well, listen, I love Vogue. I love all the pop culture stuff. And Texture is the one-stop shopping for all the magazines. Like over 200 magazines at your fingertips. We travel. Who wants to carry all those magazines with you? You have them on your Texture app.
And not only that, kiddo, but they also have, it's searchable.
Yeah.
Which, you have to go through pages and regular. It's like, what? You have to rip out all the stupid perfume ads and gut the magazine. But now you could search it. You can mark what you like. You could check out back issues because everybody likes a back issue.
Oh, yes.
Bonus video content. They even have, they can curate articles and magazines just for you or whoever you're giving Texture to this year. Now, it's normally $9.99 a month, and you get over 200 magazines, which that in itself is huge.
Yeah.
But if you sign up right now at texture.com/Rue, get a 14-day free trial. 14 days for free.
That's brilliant. I love it. Listen, educate yourself. Learn what's going on in the world. Unfortunately, they don't have Lowrider magazine, but they do have Motor Trends and
Popular Mechanics, like I said.
Yes, they're all there.
They have Boys Life.
It's brilliant. Teen Vogue, 17, all your favorite magazines are right here.
Yes, and it's so easy to get, you guys. Right now, Texture is offering our listeners a 14-day free trial when you go to texture.com/Rue. That's 14 days to try Texture for free. So check out texture.com/Rue. That's texture.com/Rue.
We are back with Thelma Houston. Don't leave me this way. Now, Thelma, there is a rumor that the song, the actual the tape that you recorded had Diana Ross's name on the acetate or something. Was "Don't Leave Me This Way" meant for Diana Ross, and she passed on it?
Well, I don't know about that, but this is what I was told, because I was not there when they cut the track. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how I missed it, because I had, Okay, to answer your story, answer your thing. At the same, when they cut the rhythm track for "Don't Leave Me This Way," they also cut "Love Hangover."
It's another one of my favorite songs.
Yeah,
Are they produced by the same people?
Produced by the same Hal Davis. So they were cut at the same night, and and so it could have been that it was gonna be going to her, or it was gonna be, I don't how those things go, and that's why I was gonna say that. I learned at a very early time, very soon, by just sitting around and listening, that someone could go into a producer if they felt, they meaning the creative department or whoever was that picks the songs that's going to come out, right? If they felt that a particular song was something that was going to be good for a particular artist, and if that person, whatever that person was, they maybe they had not even been in the studio before. But if they thought they had a good song, they would let them go in the studio with whoever it was, that artist, because they believed in that song. So I learned very early on who was booking the sessions, and we became friends.
Okay.
And they would let me know if my name was somebody was in, because they would say, "Listen, I want to go in and cut blah 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 on Thelma Houston."
Yeah.
So I would go and to make sure that it was in my key.
So smart.
Yeah. And so who was the person who said, "Thelma, I think this song is for you"?
Suzanne DePass. Suzanne found the song. It was on the
Harold
Melvin and the Blue Notes album. And she called me and said, "Listen, I want you to listen to this song. It's called 'Don't Leave Me This Way.' It's on Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes album, and tell me what you think about it." Well, anything that Teddy Pendergrass sings, I loved it. So of course I liked it, and she said, "Okay, well, because we think, that can be a hit. No, it could be done well. For you, it could be a really good dance.
Is it Gamble and Huff? Did they write it?
Gamble and Huff wrote it, which is another thing that's very Motown. They don't cut other people's stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So that being first of all, being recorded and being released and getting promotion and none of that was very, very rare.
Right. Because how did they roll it out? Did it come out as a single first, or was there an album attached to it?
Well, it came out as a single first. And this is also in the show. I'll tell you this. Well, it came out as a single. I had been recording tons and tons and tons.
How many albums at that point
had I recorded
at Motown?
Oh, albums! I had done like maybe one.
Sunshine.
No, but that was on ABC Dunhill.
Oh, okay.
And Motown bought it. But that was ABC Dunhill. But the first one was Thelma Houston, which was an album, that was the first one. And then the second one was Any Way You Like It, which was the Don't Leave Me This Way. And then the others came after that. But anyway, we recorded it, and Barry didn't think it was a hit. So they weren't going to release it.
The version that we know today, that's the one he didn't think was a hit.
The version that you know today was that.
So how did they push it through?
Well, Suzanne just, she believed in it. And at the time, this is when the DJ pool, DJs were becoming very powerful in the clubs, and they could make a record happen just as fast as the radio. And so that connection was available to us to go that way first, and that's what happened. And I think that, and the fact that it was in that movie, Looking for Mr. Goodbar, and those things, and the placement at the time is,
It's and so is it the same production team who did Saturday Night, Sunday Morning?
Yes, Hal Davis.
Who didn't he just pass away a few years ago?
It's a few years ago he did. Yeah.
It's just so fun. It's interesting how all of those greats, all these stories, Deke Richards and all of these people who were associated with Motown, was, they've all moved on.
Mm-hmm.
But Hal Davis was really instrumental, especially in the 70s Motown.
Yes, and with the Jackson 5.
Yeah.
With the, and
Diana Ross,
it's a name that always comes up.
Always comes up.
Yeah.
And so years later, you had another huge hit with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis on RCA.
Yeah, yes.
How did that happen?
On MCA.
Was it MCA? Oh,
on MCA.
Because RCA was just one record, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You had one record on RCA. But I can't remember chronologically. Was that after MCA or before?
RCA was before MCA.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And then the MCA was Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. And that was while Gerald Busby.
Who was at Motown before?
No, he wasn't in Motown. He was, I'm trying to think what label he was, but he wasn't. He eventually did go to Motown.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm trying to remember where he came. He came from another label to MCA.
Yeah.
And so he was very involved, and he put me with the Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and we did have a hit.
You used to hold me so tight.
And Gerald was in the video, and
Gerald Busby's in the video?
Busby was in my video. It was a very interesting video where they took 3 songs and put them in one and made like a little mini movie thing.
Yeah.
And it was over the Christmas holidays, I believe. It went to number 5, really great R&B. And
it was the peak of the Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Well, one of them. I mean, they were on fire at this time.
This was before Janet.
What year was this? Oh, this is before Janet.
Yeah,
like
this
85.
was 84.
Okay. 84?
Yeah, This was because this is when the year that they had the Olympics here.
Right.
Yeah. Hold 1 second. We're going to stop tape for a minute. Our next guest is here. So and so. I can't remember people's
Nigel
name.
or Alex.
Yeah. I guess she's at the gate. So, what? Well, no, I just want to stop tape for a minute
so we can click her in.
Let me tell her that she is coming down. Let's see. Okay,
I've done a million shows with you. I did radio for years at a station called WKTU, and we had you at all of our events, and you were always so amazing, so good, so wonderful.
Okay, we're back, Mr. Whose name I can't ever remember after 3 years.
Those big shows.
I love our disco shows.
Yes.
Okay, you ready? You ready? Okay, right. So what was it? It was Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis at the peak of one of the peaks of their career.
This is pre-Janet.
Yes.
Yeah, this is pre-Janet.
And how long were you at MCA?
I was at MCA. Well, this was what I was going to say. So we had this big, record, and I got called in. Gerald wanted to have dinner, and we were having dinner, and I thought we were talking about the next single release, and it was my dismissal.
What?
Yes.
After such a big hit?
After such a big hit.
What did they...
So disappointing. that was the first time I'd ever been, really kicked up. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you chose to leave Motown.
Yes, that was a choice. And then the RCA thing was we was a mutual, was not working.
That was Richard Perry?
Yes, Richard Perry. Yes.
Yeah.
But MCA, according to you,
but that was later with Richard Perry with Warner Reprise.
Oh, okay. Oh, the RCA was not with. Who did you do RCA with?
RCA was with.
Was there? Did you have a hit over there?
No. No. Didn't have a hit at RCA.
Yeah.
And it was a weird, I tell you, it was a weird place because I was, R&B, so you have to be represented by the R&B department.
Sure, right.
And the people in the R&B department didn't get disco and didn't, it was hard for them to see that I'm that's not all I do.
Sure.
But whatever. So they would just not really participate and stuff.
Right.
And that's
frustrating.
I guess it's going to be in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was almost a fist fight, and one of my manager was Sandy Gallen.
Really?
Oh,
yes.
wow.
I had no idea.
Yeah, Sandy Gallen.
Yeah.
Sandy Gallen, Dolly Parton,
The Pointers, Whoopi Goldberg.
I met
Dolly Parton came in a limousine to pick me up, to take me up to Sandy so we could have a discussion. And so she says, this is who I like Sandy and blah blah. And she was telling me on the way up in the car, all the way up to him, and telling me things about.
How long were you represented by Sandy Gallon?
About maybe 3-4 years.
So when you left Motown, though, did they try to fight for you because you had put out another album after the Any Way You Want It? Mm-hmm. You put out another album after that.
Mm-hmm. The one that had done the roller, that had Saturday Night, Sunday morning on it. Mm-hmm.
And then after that one, you said, "I want to leave."
Well, I had been on the label for a very long time.
Sure.
And one of the things that was a deciding factor for me was, one of the things is that I always I went in like gung home and do this but I had been said, as a matter of fact, my manager that at the time before I signed him, his name was Mark Gordon, who was the manager of the Fifth Dimension, and he did not want me to go to Motown, but then he had kind of stopped really being a manager. He was getting so big, and he had his own record label and stuff. So when you don't around a person, you have to feel that confident that they're not just telling you something just
right,
because.
Yeah.
So he was pulling away and stuff. So anyway, when I went to Motown, he felt that he could no longer represent me. So I was without really management because you can't manage and be in the, you can't have management and so I was kind of out there.
Yeah.
And so one incident that happened. First of all, I was recording and it was never good, never right, never da. So I recorded "Do You Know Where You're Going," which was the theme for Mahogany.
Yeah.
And I recorded first. Michael Masser had written it. Michael Masser and Jerry Goffin had written it, and I was the first person. And it was on a project that Michael was doing for me. And we thought it was good. It was good.
Is it Bingo Long, the Traveling All-Stars? That movie? Because you sang the theme to the movie Bingo Long and the...
But that wasn't from that. There was a song that he wrote that was similar to that they listened to. It was called Piano Man.
Yes. Right.
But they heard that, and then Bingo Long was they would kind of listen to that. And
I see. Yeah.
But anyway, so I felt, well, and it was just, it had been but now it's 5 years or more of that.
Sure.
And I just couldn't do it.
Right. So you felt like you were being overlooked for other stars.
Yeah. And I felt that no matter what I did or no matter how much, whatever, that's what it was going to be. And maybe, who knows, right or wrong decision. But at the time, that's what I felt was the best thing for me to do.
Yeah.
And I never had a big hit like Don't Leave Me This Way.
Well, that is a massive hit.
But
that's once in a lifetime that hits like that.
Yeah. And you got a Grammy for that.
Yes, I did.
Deservedly so.
Yes, it's amazing. And I just saw you perform just a few months ago, and your voice is just as strong and just as powerful. And I'm sure at the show, which is on August 27th at the Ford Theater. I know you can be found at ThelmaHouston.com.
Yes, ThelmaHouston.com. I have all my information. I'm not a social. So I had to get it written down in big letters.
Yes.
But I'm Twitter. Twitter.
Yeah, I've been tweeting out the information on the show.
Yes. So it's these things here.
And they've just redone the Ford Theater. Michelle, have you ever been to the Ford Theater?
I don't know. Have I?
It's in the Cahuenga Pass. It's on the other side of the freeway from the Hollywood Bowl. Yeah.
They just spent $71 million.
Oh my goodness.
So they got big plans for it, obviously.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. It was beautiful, but they have really improved it a lot. This is the thing.
Okay,
can you read it?
Yeah, I can. Now to purchase tickets, you can go to Thelma's Ford Theater show. I see. Yeah, you can get tickets at Thelma Houston /tickets.com. And, obviously, Thelma Houston Thelma Houston is the Twitter handle. And all of this is available at ThelmaHouston.com. It's very easy. Very simple.
Just go to your website.
Yeah, it's perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming by. I can't wait to see this show.
It's
going to be exciting. It's all outdoors.
Yes,
and
it's a
nice.
beautiful theater. And they want to encourage people, if you want to bring, it's kind of like a little mini Hollywood Bowl. If you want to bring a picnic lunch.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, how
or
fun.
you can do that, and it's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I will be there.
Well, thank you so much. I had
wait.
such a good time.
My pleasure.
Such a good time.
You know, Michelle, this Blue Apron thing is amazing to me. The fact that they send fresh food straight to your home and allow you to become the chef that you were born to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. You should have your own cooking show.
Well, I don't know about that. Don't
Yeah.
get crazy, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I am not a cook, and I am a mother of 2 teenage girls who are hungry. And before they get hangry, Mama got to learn how to cook. So they're not going to eat my vegan delights. So I have to make food for them. My youngest daughter, Lola, is a carnivore.
Oh, really?
I told you if I could attach her mouth to a cow, she'd be so happy.
She's a girl after my own heart.
There you go. So Lola lives for Blue Apron, especially we just had one of the meals that we had was the beef lo mein. So it came with the noodles. So here's
that
before I
sounds
get
really good.
I know, and before I get into the recipe, this is what happens. It gets delivered to your house in a box. Everything just comes in a box.
I love it.
Gets delivered. It could sit out there because it's on ice.
Yeah.
And the meat is separated from the produce, so nothing gets soggy or leaks or anything like that. Comes with the the biodegradable, not bad
Sure.
for the environment ice
Yeah.
packs. And then you go home, you put everything in your fridge, and then you can choose whether you're feeding 2 people, 4 people, how many meals you want a week.
Yeah.
All the ingredients are there. All you have to do is follow the recipe card. Everything's doled out, like you need 2 tablespoons of oil.
I see it's measured out. Tell me
Yes.
this. How long does it take on average for you to make each meal? Like how long did it take you to do the beef lo mein?
That was a quick one. There's some that are 30 minutes and under, and there's some that take a little bit longer. Like if I order steaks for her or pork chops, it's going to take a little longer to cook the
Right,
meat.
of course.
But since this was ground beef, it takes 8 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
And the noodles just get plopped in. It's not, even when it's pasta, it's not long at all.
Are the recipes easy to follow?
Super easy to follow. Like I said, everything is measured out for you, and it's less than $10 a meal. Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with pre-proportioned ingredients. Guys, that changes the game. The only thing you might have to do is cut stuff up. Who cares?
I can do that.
Exactly. Anybody could do that. And I've learned so much about cooking. And the thing is with the recipes, I keep the cards that the kids love. So if I ever want to make it myself, I go out and buy the ingredients and remake it. It's amazing. Some of the upcoming meals are like basil pesto chicken with summer vegetable panzanella.
Ooh, girl.
Sauteed shrimp and green beans with globe tomato, spinach, and orzo pasta.
Did you say shrimp?
I said shrimp. It's so easy, you guys. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals for free with free shipping. This big old box come to your house, free shipping. Plus, it's delicious. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/Ru. That's blueapron.com/RU. Blue Apron, a better way to cook.
We are here with Freda Payne. Girl, it's a long time in the make. You drove over here.
Right.
We're in Los Angeles, obviously. Now, you're from Detroit.
I'm from Detroit.
So you must have gotten your driver's license when you were 16?
I did.
16.
I
The
was
day you
16
turned 16?
Well, let me think back now. I started practicing driving while I was still 15, and then when I got my license, I was 16.
And because I always wondered this about from people from Detroit, which is the motor city where all the cars come from, what their car experiences are. What was the first car you owned?
It was a Ford, and I believe it was a Galaxy, and it was white and like a coral, kind of like a coral,
like a pastel,
like an orange, not orange, but kind of like it's somewhere between orange and pink. I call it coral. Yeah. It was a Ford, and there was no power steering.
Oh dear.
Oh, it was like rack and pinion, so it was like
Getting in the
manual.
parking space. It was like
you get big muscles, yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
but I was young, 16, so you don't mind. And I had that was a graduation gift, high school graduation gift, because I graduated from high school at 16.
Did your folks work in the auto industry?
Well, not my parents per se. Well, okay, my paternal dad, Freda Payne, he worked at Ford's. My mother divorced him when I was only 3.5 years old. So he worked at Ford's, and my grandfather worked at Ford's, and my uncle, my mother's brother, that is,
they all worked. Everybody, all the men worked, you know, in the car industry in the like Chevrolet, Ford, or whatever. However, when my mother remarried when I was 6, her husband, who became my stepfather, he actually, I think he worked at the Detroit News for a short period of time, and then he became a deputy sheriff for the Wayne County. So he was a policeman for a while, until he and my mother pooled their money together and they bought a bar. And so they bought a bar back as far back. It was in like around 53. I was like about 13 or 14 when they bought the bar. And it was called the Collingwood Bar.
Collingwood. And this is in the neighborhood you grew up in? Is it near Cass Technical High?
No, here's the deal about Cass. When I graduated from middle school, it was a school called Hutchins. And at that time, we lived on a street called Atkinson, between 12th and Woodrow Wilson. I would have had to get up an hour earlier to go to Cass, to walk down to get the bus, wait on the bus. Like, I would get up in the morning and I would look out of my bathroom window and I would see, let's say there were a couple of kids that went to Cass on my block. And I would look out of my window and it would be kind of like just still almost dusk, you know? And they'd be walking down the street going to the bus stop, and I'd just be getting up like, oh, well, I wanted to go to
because that was where everybody wanted to go there. I know that Lily Tomlin went there and Diana Ross went there, and that was the magnet school that all the kids wanted to go to.
Well, that was the smart kids, the ones who really had, were ambitious. I guess I qualified. I had the average, but I just did. But Central was within walking distance, like it was only like about 4 blocks away.
Right.
So you could sleep in.
So I could sleep in, sleep in, and even at that, I was always running late. I'd have a mouthful of cereal. I'd be like my cream of wheat. I'd be like, out the door.
For all of us who have followed the Detroit story, especially for that golden era of Detroit, we just always imagine that there are all famous people in your high school. I mean, were there other famous people in your school at Central?
Well, there were. Another thought I'd like to add about in tribute to Cass Tech, which I wish if I could go back and do it again, I think I would have made myself go. They had a better music department, and that's my thing. Now, had I gone to Cass, I would have probably learned more, and I would have felt more secure about going on to Juilliard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
So. That's all I have. That's my confession. But as far as fame, let's see, there was Brian Holland, who was a part of the Holland Dozier and Holland.
Yes.
We had classes together. And
he went to Central High.
He went to Central we had, I think, for we had a couple of classes together.
Wow.
Lamont Dozier, he didn't go to Central, but we were in middle school together, and all like 3 years we were in the same class for 3 years.
What do you think it was? It was. I saw a documentary about funk bands on PBS a couple of years ago, and they talked about all these funk bands that had come out of Ohio, and they explained that these young people, their parents had moved to Ohio for the jobs. And it was the first time that their children could have a garage. So all of these kids had garages, so they started bands. So that's why you had the Ohio Players and Lakeside, and the list goes on and on, for these funk bands who'd come out of Ohio. What do you think was that element that made Detroit the the American music capital that it was?
Oh my goodness. Well, I have a feel. Well, my theory is that in Detroit, a lot of the African American people who were involved in music, the kids, I call them the kids because their parents usually weren't. My parents weren't involved in music, and usually it's the kids that, my peers who got involved in music, and I think it had a lot to do with. Let's go back to the parents. They usually migrated from the South. You see, like we're talking about the 40s. and they migrated from the South. So you got people from Georgia, from Mississippi, okay, that Mary Wilson, Thelma Houston, all right. You got people. My dad was born in Asheville, North Carolina.
Great city.
Yeah, Alabama. My mother was born in Birmingham, Alabama.
Wow.
So all the people, these people migrated from the South. They came to Detroit because of why? Detroit it was booming. It was a motor city. Detroit, more people. Some people forget that Detroit had a reputation for being the motor capital of the world, really, because that's where you had General Motors, Ford Motor Company, Chevrolet, Dodge, Cadillac, you know, and there were the jobs. That's where the money was.
Right.
So these people migrated to Detroit because there was work. And like I said before in the beginning, and you asked me about that, I said, yeah, just about all the men in my immediate family, my uncles, grandfather, my dad, you know, they all worked in the car industry, in Ford Motor Company, Chevrolet, Dodge, or whatever.
Sure.
And that's what happened. So when those jobs started to disappear, and General Motors started to like lay people off, and then they started moving factories to other places outside of Detroit, that's when Detroit went down.
Right.
Because there were no more lucrative
When did that
or
start happening?
semi-lucrative jobs.
I think 1970, because Motown left. They started leaving Detroit in 1968 to come to Hollywood.
There, yeah. It was around there, 68, 69, yeah, around there.
When did you leave Detroit?
I left, well, literally, I have to say, I hate to say left, but, you know, I went to New York when I was 18. And that might have been, what year would that be? Ooh, about like 61. And I went to New York, but of course I was going back and forth, you know, I was visiting, but I was literally living in New York. And I didn't have a car in New York because I was afraid to drive in New York.
Right.
You know, but in New York it was like taxis and subway. You know, subways and taxis, and that was it. You know, and some of my friends who did have a car, it was such a carol. It was kind of like always trying to find the right parking spot. They always had to be aware where they parked. And then my best friend, who was also one of my roommates, I remember she had a car for a while, and her car got stolen.
Oh my goodness!
So it was like, I'm not going to get a car in New York.
So you moved to New York, and then of course around that time you were hearing the news that Berry Gordy and Motown was taking off. I mean, I think Got a Job was a big hit for
Get
Smokey.
a job.
Is that 1960 or 58?
Get a job.
Yeah, because that was the first big hit that Motown had, I believe.
That wasn't. Did Smokey write it? I don't think he sang it. He didn't.
Or is it Mickey Stevenson who wrote that?
I think it might have been Mickey Steven. Got a job. I can call right now. That's somebody. You know,
I can Google while y'all are talking.
Well, but you were hearing that was happening, and while you were in New York.
Mary Wells. Okay, let's go way back. Mary Wells.
My Guy was 1960.
My Guy. Okay.
Or was it 62?
It was around there because Mary. And let me tell you what's the real deal. I was Berry Gordy Jr.'s first female protege before he even established Motown.
Wow.
I was the one that he wanted. I was the one that he wanted to manage, and record, and groom, because he saw, and this is something that I would have to say, I was shocked that he said this out of his own mouth. And this was in Vegas. I was doing Sophisticated Ladies with Paula Kelly and
the Hines,
right.
Maurice Hines.
No, not Maurice. No, this was the Fayard and Harold, the Nicholas brothers.
Yes,
I was doing.
the Nicholas
it was
brothers.
Harold Nicholas. I was starring along with Paula Kelly and Harold Nicholas at the Desert Inn. We were there for 8 months.
Wow.
Barry came to see the show. And he came, of course he came because basically he wanted to see the show and he wanted to see me, you know. He still to this day comes to my shows, you know, on occasions. They came after the show, they came backstage and he was in Paula Kelly's dressing room. And we were all sitting around And Paula was, said, because there was like a little bar in her dressing room. And Paula said, Barry, how in the world, how do you know Freda? He said, how do I know Freda? She was my first female protege. and he said, she's the one that inspired me to see what I needed to do and where I wanted to go.
Wow.
He said that, and I was like, I would never, if I had said it, it would have been like, I would have heard about it or something, but he said it out of his mouth, and he still says it to this day.
Wow.
He says that. And the thing is that when he first started coming to, watch me, he would come to my dance classes. I had studied ballet for a couple of years. And then I did a little bit of, in school, we had modern dance classes. And then I was taking Afro-Cuban classes. And so he would come to my Afro-Cuban class and just stand there and watch me dance. And then he wrote 3 songs for me. And we went into the studio, which was called United Sound, which is on West Grand Boulevard. And it's right down the street from where Hitsville is today. And United Sound was the major recording studio commercial where people recorded commercials, what have you. And even at the age of 16, I did some commercials. I'm a member of AFTRA from 1959.
Wow.
Yeah, and it says on the card, a member since 1959.
Oh, does it?
Yeah,
I have
it says
info on the
card.
song.
What is?
So Get a Job was by the Silhouettes in 1957. And
Wow.
it was written by Earl Beale, Raymond Edwards, Richard Lewis, and William Horton. But it was recorded at Robinson Recording Laboratories in Philly.
Wow.
Interesting.
But it was a hit for Smokey Robinson and
Well,
the Miracles.
it was redone
by them.
by so Sha Na did it, and the debut recording by the Miracles.
Oh, wow.
So it was an answer song.
Okay.
Get a Job was
and
an
Got a
answer
Job.
song.
Right.
Got a Job was the response by the Miracles to Get a Job.
I see.
So wait a minute. So Sha Na did it, a remake of it?
So the revival group Sha Na derived their name from the song's doo-wop introduction. Get a Job inspired a number of answer songs, including Got a Job, which is the debut recording by the Miracles. That's the Smokey connection.
Which was I believe the first big hit on Motown. That's what I believe.
Well, no, not Got a Job. I don't think so. We got to go back to Mary Wells.
Because is My Guy 1962, Michelle? Do you
I'm
see
looking it
that?
up right now.
Yeah.
And then there was another artist that started. So what happened was,
Please, Mr. Postman, first #1 hit
okay.
For Motown?
And what about
by
Money?
the Marvelettes.
That was the Marvel. What about Money?
Barrett Strong.
Barrett Strong, another friend that I went to school with. Barrett Strong.
But you were talking about your dance classes and Barry Gordy coming to watch you dance. Isn't it kind of weird that there's a grown man
Creeping out there?
Well,
you don't answer. We're going to take a break, and I want you to answer when we come back.
Okay.
ZipRecruiter is a brilliant site that allows you as an employer to find the right employees. In fact, you can post your job to 100 plus job sites with just one click.
And there's a lot of creatives out there like us.
Sure.
And if you're thinking, how am I going to find somebody to fit in this mold for what I need? ZipRecruiter is the place for you to go because it's going to just narrow it down to exactly what you want.
And that really saves time because the more time that passes that you don't have that employee, you're actually losing money. That's why ZipRecruiter is different. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them.
So smart.
In fact, over 80% of the jobs posted on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just 24 hours.
That's barely any, if any, money lost.
Yeah.
In 24 hours. It's unbelievable. No juggling emails, no calls to your office, which are really annoying when you're trying to run a business.
Yeah.
Simply screen, rate, and manage candidates all in one place with ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard, and easy is the key word here. So find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, Rue, our listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free.
Ooh.
That's right, baby, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/RU. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Rue. One more time to try it for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/RU.
We are back with Freda Payne, the legendary Freda Payne. I have so many stories for you because I'm always intrigued about the Detroit story and how it happened, why it happened. What occurred in this great American story to have so much talent come out of it. And you're saying that these are people from the South who grew up with gospel music, and this is they got to get there, and
Yeah,
it just
they
so it
migrated
exploded.
to Detroit because that's where the jobs were.
Yeah, right.
You know, it was like, get a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now tell me this. Now, you talked about Berry Gordy's story, and he wanted to use you as a protege. But what happened? Why did he not? Did
Okay,
you not
here's-
want to do that?
Oh, I wanted to do it, but keep in mind, I was a child. You know, I was a child, and I was a good child at that time. Later on,
Yeah,
when I went to New York, I jumped there. But what happened was he wrote 3 songs for me, and we went to New York. It was Barry, my mother, and a guy named George Kelly who owned a nightclub, and Barry was helping Barry out as far as finances was concerned.
Was it the 20 grand or the what?
No, there was no at that point. 20 grand wasn't happening.
Okay.
This was George Kelly. He had a nightclub. It was just call it Kelly's or whatever. And Barry didn't have money like we know him now. We think of Berry Gordy. Oh, he's rich, you know. He wasn't successful there. But he had written a couple of hit songs for Jackie Wilson.
Right.
You know, To Be Loved, I think, in another song.
Oh, God, I can't believe I just saw in Vegas 2 weeks ago the Solid Gold Review. They were doing the song with Jackie Wilson. It'll come to me.
Lonely Teardrops?
Yes, Lonely Teardrops.
So Barry had been writing these songs. He was hustling. You know, he's a hustler. And so we recorded the songs, and then we went to New York in George Kelly's white Cadillac.
Ooh, fancy.
And it was my mother, George was driving, Barry was in the front seat, and my mother and I were sitting in the back. We drove to New York, got there. We went right to the Apollo. And Barry wanted to talk to Little Willie John. And so Little Willie John came to the stage door. I remember it very vividly. And he had on like a smoking jacket. He was headlining. And they spoke. And then Barry went on for a meeting with this guy at Roulette Records. And he was this guy. Not John Levy. Morris.
Morris Levy.
Morris Levy.
Yeah.
He was the president of Roulette.
Yeah.
So after that, my mother and I, they checked us into a hotel, and then the next day we left. He stayed.
In
Barry
New York,
stayed.
yeah.
And then when he got back to Detroit, he came over to the house, sat down in the living room with my mother, and they were talking business about he wanted to manage me. And he said, I can get the deal with Roulette Records for Freda, and I want to manage Freda. Now I'm sitting in the hallway on the staircase listening, you know, because they didn't want they didn't want me sitting there, and I heard my mother going back. Well, Barry, you want to manage my daughter? You want 25%, and what does the agent get? He said 10. She said that's 35%. Now, Barry, who pays for my daughter's gowns? He said your daughter. Barry. If she has to fly somewhere or fly in a plane to get to an engagement or something like that, who pays for that? Your daughter. Who pays for the hotel? Your daughter. But Barry, what does that leave Freda? And he couldn't say anything. She said, I don't think this will work. And that was it. So let's fast forward. Motown, you know, first he had Tamala, and then it was Anna Records, you know, and then Tamala, and then Motown, okay? That started happening, and then the music started coming out, and it was good music. I mean, the Miracle, Smokey. I first met Smokey during that period, you know, and all the Miracles, all the original Miracles, and of course Claudette. They knew, you know, and they knew that Barry wanted me. He really did. But for something about this man, he has to have it his way. He doesn't take no for an answer, and he has to have it. It's either his way or no way. You know. So a few years went by. We're talking like, you know, this was like in 61. 1965, I was in Europe. I was in Europe, and I was playing a club in Manchester, England. A private club. I happened to see in the paper that the Motown Review was coming to Manchester, and then they were in Manchester. And so I called backstage, and I said, is Berry Gordy there? because they had the Miracles, they had Martha Reeves, and they had the Supremes with Diana, Mary, and Flo, and Little Stevie Wonder, and what's that guy that played the saxophone?
Oh, Junior
Walker. Junior Walker. And so I'm saying, I wonder if Barry's with him. So he came to the phone.
Huh.
He said, Freda, you're here. I said, yeah, I'm at this club. He came to the club where I was working and caught my show.
Wow.
And he said, wow. He says, I'm impressed. And then he invited me to see the review. I saw the review. Now, I'm not going to tell you some other stuff.
Uh-huh. That's for the book. That's for the book.
That's for the book.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, he said, when are you coming back to Detroit? I said, well, I should be like maybe in 2 or 3 weeks from now. He said, when you get back, contact me. And even Smokey, when I went backstage, he said, yeah, you ought to be with us. You ought to be with us.
Mm-hmm.
So I get back to Detroit and I contact him. And he has his lawyer, Ralph Seltzer, send a contract to the house, and I look over the contract. And at that time, we had a neighbor. His name was Alan Early Jr. He was a top criminal attorney in Detroit, and he was a good friend of my parent. They were friends, African American. Alan Early Jr. He's not with us any longer. And Alan read the contract because Alan was always promoting me, and and he said, we should change. There's some things that need to be changed here. Just common sense. You got to negotiate. You just can't just take something and just sign it.
Yeah.
So anyway, what happened was he got the contract back and he calls and my mother says it's Barry, and he got I was on the phone. He said, Freda, nobody changes my contracts. And I said, well, you did it with the Four Tops. He said, but that's a different story. I have a relationship with Levi. He says, nobody changes my contracts. We can't do business. We can be friends, but we can't do business. And that was it.
Wow.
That was it.
Wow.
And, my attitude was, oh, well,
Yeah.
move on.
Because there was talk, though, that he wanted you to replace Diana when she left the group at one point.
I never heard that.
Because your sister,
I never heard that. Where'd you get that from?
I know, there's so many stories about. That's why it's always so interesting to me. There's so much urban legend and folklore surrounding the Motown story of Barry and the contracts and all that stuff.
Yeah, and let me tell you another odd thing. This might just me tripping, but remember when the Supremes did their first national special with the Temptations?
Yes. Is it TCB?
TCB. And it was Diana. Remember Diana doing a dance number, and it was Afro-Cuban?
Yes. Yeah, and she's got the bathing suit thing
So where
on.
did they get that from Afro-Cuban?
Think about it. Think about it.
Well,
what goes around comes around.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's my story.
No, it's an interesting thing. What's also interesting is that years later, when Dozier Holland left Motown, they started their own label, Invictus.
Invictus, right?
And that's where they signed you.
Yeah, they signed me, and Eddie Holland, who was the president of Invictus, Eddie said at one. I remember him saying to me, this was privately, and he was saying, "Yeah, we're gonna get some hits on you." He says, because I know Barry wanted you. Barry wanted you bad. That's what he said to me.
Yeah.
And so where did he get that from?
Yeah, that's why it's such an
and
interesting...
I knew intuitively when I signed with them, I said, they're going to get me a hit because they've got something to prove.
Yes, right.
So they have an incentive. It's not just signing another artist and, let's see what happens, throw it up against the wall, see what sticks. It was more behind that.
But they couldn't use their name because of the legal story.
They were suing Motown, and Motown countersued them back.
Right.
And it was a lot of intrigue, going on.
What year are we talking? This is 69?
We're talking, I signed, and the year that I actually signed was 68, and then we started recording in 69. And there was people parked outside spying, and stuff like that.
Was this in Detroit?
This is in Detroit.
Okay.
So I was still really living in New York, but then I came back and for recording
To get a job.
Yes.
to get myself a job,
Right.
And it was so ironic. I said, now here I am. I left Detroit, went to New York, and now I wind up coming back to my hometown to find success.
Right, right. So the song Band of Gold, which was a #1 song, that was written by Holland Dozier Holland?
Actually, yeah, it was. I remember the first indication was, I remember once, this was years after it became a hit, and this was sometime in the 80s. And I remember Lamont Dozier. I was at his house because my sister Freda Payne, who by the way became a Supreme,
Yes.
in 1973, and they were dating. At Sherry and Lamont were an item. This is before he got married. But Sherry and Lamont had a relationship for 10 years.
Oh,
And we were at his house for a barbecue because Lamont fancies himself as a cook. And he had a few, a few libations.
Sure.
And he's sitting there and he says, Freda, who do you think wrote Band of Gold? I said, Ron Dunbar and Edith Wade. He says, no, I did. Just like that.
And because they couldn't use their name on there, because
No,
how long
because
did that lawsuit go on with Holland Dozier Holland and Motown?
It went on for years.
Did they win?
I think they had to. It was some kind of a settlement. They had to it was just settled,
Right.
But I don't know that Eddie Holland. He's always wanted to get in a lawsuit. He likes he's Scorpio. He likes to fight.
Yeah.
Wow. And be at war with somebody.
Yeah. It's such an interesting story, and I don't know if there is one definitive story because there's so many players involved, so many groups and different factions from the whole Motown story. I've heard all of the stories, and then you sort of try to cross-reference to come up with the definitive.
All right. It's sort of like I have to use this phrase from Donald Trump. It's sort of like what's the fake news and what's the reality? Right. What's the real deal?
Right. Somewhere in there, the truth is.
Yeah, because I've read stuff about me on like Wikipedia, biography, and I'm saying, that's not quite right.
Yeah.
It needs to be correct, just little things, not huge things, but little things where they misconstrue something.
Sure. Yeah.
Or they'll throw in something that should be corrected.
Well, that's the good thing about Wikipedia. You can just go in and change it.
Yeah, you can
that's
change
the
it
problem.
yourself.
Anybody can change it.
And your age.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
Those, trust me, that they try to get, you have to get a citation for that, for your
okay.
age. So somebody put in the wrong age for me, and I was like, that is not the year I was born. I had to fight it all the way to the top.
Okay. Really?
I was born in 1968,
Yeah.
and they had me down to 66. I was like, give me my 2 years
Give
back.
me your 2 years back.
I want them back.
Well, I know for a fact, let's say, I heard that Charo had done it.
Yeah.
Changed her, knocked off, I think, 8 or 9 or 10
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
I know, because
My ex-husband did it.
Gregory Abbott.
Uh-huh.
Right on. Well, if you can get away with it.
You didn't hear it from me.
Yeah. Now, okay, so who wrote Bring the Boys Home?
That was written by Greg Perry, who also produced The Honeycomb.
Oh, yeah.
I love the
Me
Honeycomb.
too.
Oh, yeah. And it was 3 writers. There was Greg Perry, Angelo Bond, and General Johnson, who was the lead singer of Chairman of the Board.
Oh, I loved you. Because your sister was, she wrote a song, Crumbs Off the Table.
Crumbs Off the Table.
Yeah, which was on Invictus, and Laura Lee had a hit
And
with
Laura
that.
Lee had the hit, but Sherry wrote it. And Sherry recorded it also.
Because she was with a group called...
The Glass House.
Glass House.
The Glass House. They formed the Glass House because of Sherry.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because Barry, one day this was in Detroit, and I was talking to Eddie Holland on the phone. And while we're talking, Sherry was in the living room playing the piano, playing one of her original tunes and singing loud. Mm-hmm. And I think she knew what she was doing and playing loud. And Eddie said, wait a minute. Hold up. Who's that playing in the background and singing? That's my sister Sherry. He said, let me listen for a minute. He said, tell her to come to the phone.
Because didn't Holland Dozier Holland do the Touch album? Is that the Supremes Touch album? Is that all Holland Dozier Holland?
I know that's what Mary uses. Mary Wilson uses that in her signature at the end of
The Touch.
she'll say Touch. Mary Wilson.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Freda, thank you so much for coming in to talk to us. Now, we can find you. I know you did a gig recently at the Catalina here.
Catalina, about a week ago.
Yeah, and then is it FredaPayne.com?
FredaPayne.com, and I have been, I've moved more into jazz now.
Yes.
Although I haven't given up my R&B roots, but I still my real strength is like I do a lot of jazz. And
I loved your show over at Feinstein's, or is it Carlisle? Which one was...
No, the first time you came to see me was with Darlene Love in New York, and it was Love and Pain. We had an act
I love
together.
that.
What was that venue? Was it Feinstein's?
That was Feinstein's.
Yeah.
Feinstein's.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Brilliant.
At the Regency.
Yeah.
On Park Avenue.
I love it.
And then you just saw me at Vibrato.
Vibrato.
Last year.
Yeah.
I believe it was
It was
last year.
fantastic.
Vibrato. I've been doing tributes to Ella Fitzgerald. I've done it in regional theater as an actress.
Yes.
In costume and wigs and fat suit, the whole bit.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I've done it twice, and I'm doing it next year in Wilmington, Delaware.
Wilmington, Delaware. What's the venue?
I think it's called the Delaware Theater.
Uh-huh.
It's a 400-seater, and I'm going to be doing it there next year with Maurice Hines.
Oh, wow.
Maurice is directing and choreographing, and Maurice did Maurice calls me. He says, "Freda, you are the only one. You're my first choice."
Wow.
He says, "You were born to do Ella." Quote.
I
Maurice
love it.
Hines.
That's quite
I
a
love
compliment.
It is
Yeah,
a compliment.
It is a compliment.
Well, we'll be sure and check that out.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming to talk to us. I love you
You're
clearing up the myth of
The Supremes,
myth,
yeah.
of all of that Motown stuff. It's just so amazing. It's a brilliant.
Well, Motown to me deserves all the credit for what it has now, because they actually changed R&B. They created R&B music to and made it what it is. And I'm not saying that they're the only ones. There was Philadelphia International. There was
Stax,
and all those other companies. But Motown was sort of like this. Let's say the bullet, the spearhead that kind of like paved the way for it all.
Absolutely, and I'm so happy to have experienced all of that.
Oh, and just for the record, my latest CD, which I recorded about 2 years ago, is on a jazz label called Mac Avenue, and it's called "Come Back to Me, Love."
And is it available on iTunes?
It's available on iTunes, Amazon.
Oh,
Yeah.
Come Back
It's
to
with
Me,
Big
Love.
Band. It was recorded here in L.A. at Capitol Records in Studio A.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice.
Frank Sinatra's studio?
That's right.
Oh, wow.
That's right.
Oh, love
Yeah.
it. Well, thank you, Freda.
Okay.
Love you, baby.
Love you too, Ru.
Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? If you can't love yourself, how in the hell you gonna love somebody else? Can I get an amen?
And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes.
If you can't love yourself, how in the hell you gonna love somebody else? Amen.